Congo is the heart chakra of Africa.
Right.
And for a long time, it was the center of the world. It was the center of knowledge in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It was the center of humanity on Earth.
Yeah.
The USA, rather than come in and say, hey, we've got a deal, let's do an agreement, they come in with their soldiers, they come in with their special operations, they come in with their money, they come in with their weapons, and most importantly, they come in with their US dollar. They destabilize the whole region, and then they take everything that they can take out, they take out.
The mainstream news is not the news anymore. The mainstream news is now the feeds or social media. How can we turn those feeds into an educational system where we're now talking about and showing and exposing what's going on so we can begin to educate the rest of the world on what's really happening?
Boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it. Quitting was never an option. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it.
Hey everyone, it's Billy Carson, aka Forbidden Knowledge. I'm here with a very good friend of mine and a huge conscious community influencer, a person that really is taking things to the next level when it comes to humanitarianism and also when it comes to animal safety, animal care, and of course, as you know, he does a lot with children in Africa. So his name is Shaka. You may know him on Instagram as Chakabars. And this man has traveled the world many times, and right now he came all the way from the Congo all the way to America, and I'm blessed to have him sit down here with me. So what I want to do, Shaka, is I want you to tell the people a little bit about yourself and, a little bit of your history, who you are, and how you became passionate about humanitarianism, and also how you became passionate about helping kids.
I was born in Barbados on a mountain. And just after I was born, in a house that my mom and my father was renting at the time, we became homeless. So we were living in a tent, so we were displaced. So I don't remember it, but my mom would tell me about it, and she took me to where we were living, and that kind of humble beginnings showed me that, as much as however you think that whatever heights you think you're going to reach, we come in the world the same, we go out the same.
Yes, sir.
And so I thought that it would only be an honor to my mother, and it would only be an honor to humanity itself and God if I try my best now to do God's work. But I didn't used to think like that. When I was very, very young, we grew up in poverty. After living in Barbados, I was living in the UK, and I was living in the UK until I was around 17, and then I joined the British Army. So I was in the military. The only reason I joined the military, not because I'm into imperialism or anything like that, but the only reason I joined the military is because we lived in a white racist area, and I couldn't get a job when I left school. I couldn't get a job.
Right.
I tried. I went to many places. I tried to get a job. I couldn't get a job. The only place that I could get a job was the army, where they were recruiting.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about the army, but they had this recruiting center, and they had a tank there, and it's like, do you want to drive a tank? All this stuff.
Right. Sounds cool.
Right. It sounds cool when you're 17. So I joined the army, but by the time I was 19, I was in Iraq in the war.
Oh man!
And they had told us that we were going to drive tanks. Then when we got there, they redeployed us as foot soldiers, right? So we did some training like a few months before, and then anyway, when I left Iraq, I decided I don't want to be in the army anymore, because as soon as I left Iraq, they started training us for Afghanistan.
Oh man!
And Afghanistan, we lost a lot of our friends in Afghanistan, and at the time, like, the marketing in the country, in the UK, was, fighting for Iraqi freedom and winning hearts and minds. And when you're in the army, you're not told that you're there to basically create a a pipeline for oil.
Right.
Right. You're told that you're there to help people. Right. So most of the men that are in there are, below the age of 20.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really know anything anyway.
Yep.
And we're not politically educated. And then in the UK, you're told you're a hero and you're doing all this good stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why are all the homeless people soldiers, ex-soldiers,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Why are the heroes being treated that way? So I got out of the army around the age of 21, 22. And then from there, I used the skills that I'd acquired in the army, which was I learned personal training, and I was a boxer when I was in the army. So I was everything was very kind of physical. And I went back to the areas where I grew up, and I started training people how to eat right, how to do training and these things. And then I moved to London. My friend, unfortunately, may he rest in power. My friend got murdered in front of me in the area where I was training people.
Oh man.
And then after that, I moved from the area that I was living in called Leeds to an area called London, or to the city of London in the UK. And I just went full into how do I better my community. So I started working in youth offenders institutes. I started working in underserved, underprivileged communities. I was doing my personal training, so I was training clients and training celebrities, but then I would use the money from that to help kids eat right and do health and fitness days and do sports days. We created this big fitness movement called Spartan Fam, and we had the biggest black gymnastics class in the UK. We had one of the biggest group workouts that ever happened for black people in the UK at the time. So I was doing that, but then I started boxing again. And I was raising money in 2016 to help a woman who, her name was Mama Masika. And she had one of the most horrific attacks happen to her that I've ever heard in humanity. She had 22 men rape her.
Oh man.
And they also raped both of her daughters. And she died now, but before she died, she was taking care of 175 children.
Wow.
So she turned that whole attack into being able to create an orphanage and take care of so many children.
Gotcha.
And then I was like, well, when I heard that she passed away, I was like, well, who's going to take care of the kids?
Right.
So that's how I ended up in Congo doing what I was doing. I started boxing for charity. I raised some money and I started taking it back to the Congo and helping the people there at this orphanage. But then I went to Kinshasa. I did another boxing match because I'm a big fan of Muhammad Ali. And I did another boxing match. I refurbished a medical center in Kinshasa. And I was also sitting there thinking to myself, yo, why going for this situation? How can a woman get raped by so many men? Like, how can this thing happen?
How?
And this is when I started researching about the context and what is going on in Congo for something like that to be able to happen.
Right.
And I still do work in Congo, as you know, but after that, I created a sustainable agricultural development project in Somalia. So I did a big project in Somalia. I've since built a school in Ghana. I've been refurbishing a school in Kingston, Jamaica. So I really just went from, all right, how do I do something, to how can I do everything? And so I just never kind of stopped. And it wasn't like when I was younger, I was like, I want to help people. It was just, why wouldn't I help people? And especially with social media, a lot of people who have influence, they use it to make corporations rich. My influence, I wouldn't even say I'm an influencer, I'd say I'm influential. My influential potential is only of that, so I can help raise consciousness and raise humanity. So I don't use any of my, you've never seen me do a paid promotion, you've never seen me do an advertisement, you've never seen me do any of that. The only things I've ever promoted is a brand that I've created, or a brand that I can utilize to help my children.
That's
But apart from that, that's it. So I now do this stuff because I think that as we are in a space where we are all profiting, literally and figuratively, from the minerals coming out of Central Africa, I'm now like, well, how are we going to give back to that? So that's kind of where I got to now. I founded iHeart Africa. The reason why I called it iHeart Africa is because Africa is a continent with many countries in it, but Congo is the heart chakra of Africa.
Right.
And for a long time, it was the center of the world. It was the center of knowledge in the world. It was the center of humanity on Earth. So that's why I work there now, because many people ignore Congo, but without Congo, there's no drums. Like the drum comes from Congo, right? the oldest mathematical tool in the world comes from Congo. So it's just like,
all the technology comes from the Congo.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the very first time that I connected with you through social media. You contacted me. I think it was probably like 2014, maybe 2015, somewhere in that range. You hit me up on a DM and you wanted to talk to me on WhatsApp. We started talking about raising money for Somalia. And I said, this guy's pretty interesting, I mean, he wants to do this whole promotion. This is great to collaborate with people through social media to make joint effort to raise money for a great cause. And it really worked. I can't believe it was like millions of dollars poured in, and even the plane and everything else within a very short period of time, which was great. And that's when I knew that, you had a true mission on this planet to help people. And I've seen you consistently over time continue to do more and more and more with the orphanages and everything else. When it comes to the Congo and it comes to what you were able to finally research and understand, what is creating the situation there for these things to continue to happen?
There's only two elements known to man that are not found in Congo. One is called Californium and the other one is called Moscovium. Every single other element on the periodic table is found in Congo.
Yeah.
So what's happened is there was the Conference of Berlin in 1885. This is when European colonizers first entered into the Congo. Before that, there was Arab colonizers. Before that, it was just Congolese.
Gotcha.
And other Bantu peoples in Congo. So after 1885, an evil, we would liken him to Hitler, dictator, monarch called King Leopold II entered into Congo. He never actually physically went there, but his mission in Congo was to try and take Congo as his personal wealth.
Right.
He did it under the guise of civilizing Congo, Christianizing Congo. He said, they are these backwards people, they need Christianity.
Yeah.
And between 1885 and 1908, they killed an estimation of between 10 to 20 million people. And when they first went there, they didn't know what was there because it's the second largest rainforest in the world. So it's not like it's just easy to get to. They found that that there was rubber there, and at the time in Europe, the modern day tire had just been invented.
Yeah,
they needed rubber, so they basically enslaved the local population to take rubber out, so that they could make massive profits. And while they were doing that, they installed in there their soldiers, some railway lines, and basically ways to just to eviscerate Congo, to take everything out, to extract everything out. So they halved the population until 1908. This was going on. Massive rapes, the things that we see with all the hands being cut off as a incentive for the local population to be able to meet these rubber quotas. So what they would do is they would take the children, they'd take the wives, and they would basically put them in cages and have them there with armed guard. They would send the men out into the jungles to get these rubbers, and they would have a rubber quota, depending on what area it was, of however many pounds of rubber per week. If they met the quotas, then they would get to see their wives and their children for a few weeks until the next cycle came again. If they didn't meet them, they would chop off their hands. And murder them, rape them, all of the horrible things. So this has been going on now in Congo for 140 years, right? Where where Congo is now is a product of, after 1908, Belgian colonial rule from 1908 to 1960. During that period of time, the Belgians just did the same thing, right? But in that time, they found diamonds, they found uranium, they found plutonium, they found gold, they found copper, they found all of these things that the indigenous people weren't really using for any specific reason. They used some things for some reasons, but there was no industrialization,
right?
Or what we would know as industrialization. The people used things and lived. They used things for their means and never lived beyond their means.
Yeah,
right.
Simple life.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But in the 16th century, you had what was between around 1615 until around 1850. There was the Kuba Kingdom. There was the Luba Kingdom. There were kingdoms that French explorers traveling to Congo before colonialism saw these advanced civilizations that had straight roads, plumbing, mansions, all of these things. So they never lived beyond the means of what was possible within the resources that they had in their country. But I mean, living.
They had a balance.
They had a balance, right? So they had an ecosystem, not an ecosystem.
Gotcha.
Right, and so by no means of what we would consider modern standards were they live in simple. Actually, maybe the rural people were, but the Kingdom of Congo, which the capital was Luanda, which is now Angola. They had, and what I can do is I'll send you an image so you can see what the French explorer illustrated. They said that there was nothing comparable in Europe to what was in Congo.
Wow.
So they had houses, they had straight roads, they had walls, fortification, plumbing. They had like massive agriculture. They had everything that you could ever hope to have. And at the time, they were basically in Europe, they were basically saying, how have these Africans done this?
Right.
And how can we do this in Europe?
Yeah.
Right. And so until 1960, the Belgians were just taking everything out of this place that they could possibly take out, stripping it bare. One of the main strategic reasons for why they wanted to stay in Congo, apart from all of the rest of the resources, was the invention of the nuclear bomb. So the atomic bomb, I don't know if you've seen the Oppenheimer movie. So the atomic bomb, there's a book that you can read, everybody can read, called Spies in the Congo. Was the CIA in Congo in the 40s, basically trying to get this uranium out of Congo into New York, which we know created what we now know as the Manhattan Project. Right. The Manhattan Project, there was 250 people working on creating this nuclear bomb. And most of the people who were working on it didn't know how the pieces all fit together.
Yeah, because it was compartmentalized. So some people will be doing this part, but nobody knew the whole project.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was only specific agents in the CIA that knew that they were getting this uranium from Congo up to Brazil into the Caribbean, because they had to make pit stops to refuel the planes. Planes were different back then. And then into New York. And when they realized, once Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened, and they realized, hang on, we can control the world with this. There's no uranium, or they didn't find any uranium in New York, right? So they had to get it from Congo. They had to get it from somewhere. The people who were mining this, there was no protective equipment. All of them died of cancer.
Of course.
Right? And it still goes on to this day, right? So in 1960, the democratically elected leader, Patrice Lumumba, said, no more. We're going to take back Congo, and Congo is going to be for the Congolese again. They invited the Belgian monarchy to basically do this handover process. And the Belgian monarchy basically expected that the Congolese would kiss their asses. They would continue colonization. And Lumumba said, no, you've been horrible to us. And they basically said, these are the things that you've done to us in front of the public. And it was broadcast And so they embarrassed the Belgian royal family in front of everybody because the Belgian royal family had been postulating this idea that they were civilizing them, and they weren't there to give back the kingdom, to give back the country. And he embarrassed them. Lumumba embarrassed them. They paid $100,000. Well, the CIA actually paid $100,000.
Yeah.
The Belgian government and royal family facilitated the murder of Patrice Lumumba. So he was assassinated a year later. After that speech, he was assassinated. Well, actually, within 6 months, he was assassinated. And that was the equivalent of $1 million that was paid to have him murdered.
Yeah.
And then after he was murdered, there was a man who was installed, a dictator called Mobutu Sese Seko, and he was in power from he was also the one that had Lumumba murdered.
Yeah, he was the puppet.
Yeah, he was the puppet.
Yeah.
He was in power from 1961, I believe, until 1994, where he was taken out. Because by 1994, he was embarrassing everybody because he was just stealing everything from the country.
Yeah.
And in 1994, while he was being taken out, the Rwanda genocide was being engineered in the bordering country.
Yeah.
The Rwanda genocide, these are not my words. These are things that are online that you can find as being well documented. The Rwanda genocide was engineered by the leader of Rwanda and the leader of Uganda. The leader of the Rwanda and the leader of Uganda were basically agents for their clients in Europe, in the UK for Uganda, and Germany, and in France and Belgium for Rwanda. And Rwanda had historically been the agents for them anyway, administrating that area as a protectorate of the French. And they basically created this genocide because from my studies, I wasn't there. At the time, I was like, I don't know, 8 years old.
Yeah, you were a kid.
Yeah, I was a kid.
But you.
But at the time, they basically had a plane shot down that was coming back from an African Union meeting.
I remember that.
That had two presidents on the plane. One was the Burundian president. One was the one was the Rwandan president, and one was the Burundian president. They shot the plane down. They were both Hutu. So that area of the world, people are divided into nations by ethnic groups. At the time, there was the Hutus and there was the Tutsis.
Yep.
And the two Hutu presidents were shot down and murdered, which caused the Hutus to rise up and become very angry. So they now started attacking the Tutsis.
Gotcha.
The Tutsis, now Kagame, Paul Kagame is in power now, actually came to power when they were now being attacked by the Hutus, but they created that.
Right.
And this genocide that, people say never forget, never again, was actually created so that Kagame, who was unpopular at the time, could become the leader through a coup d'etat.
Yeah.
So he became a leader through a coup d'etat. Then after that went to the USA and went to the Clinton administration and said, hey, this genocide happened to us. You guys look the other way. And now we need funding and we need training and we need weapons so that we can go and invade Congo, where the Interahamwe, the Hutu genocideers, because there was on both parts, there was accountability. They fled to Congo, the Hutus fled into Congo, and then the Rwandans went in there and pursued them, basically seeking revenge for what had happened. But it's not a coincidence that in 1996, when all of this was going on, Rwanda was producing 50 tons of cobalt each year. Has no cobalt in its borders, right? And then after they invaded in 1998, they were producing 250 tons. Right? So they went into Congo, and basically between 1998 and 2003, estimated between 6 to 8 million people lost their lives, perished. And this was marketed to the rest of the world as, it's just these Africans having a civil war.
That's what they did.
Right. But the reality is that 1996, was the same year that they coined the term smartphone.
Yeah.
So they needed to get these minerals from somewhere, and the only place that they could get them from, 70% of 70% of the world's coltan and cobalt is coming from this area of the Congo. They wanted to, they could only get it from there. So they destabilized Congo. Congo has been destabilized since. It's essentially a huge police state.
Yeah.
And ever since then, there's this idea that it's a civil war, but I know, and the Congolese people know, having been there and worked there, that actually it is foreign multinational governments that are paying mercenaries to go into Congo and destabilize areas where people live. Rural people live there, have lived there for hundreds of thousands of years, and they're living on all of these areas that have minerals. The people who live there don't know that the minerals are there because they know now that they're being murdered because to get these minerals out for the tech industry. But at the time, why are you going to dig? Why are you going to dig hundreds of feet under the ground to get stuff out? They just live in
gloom. They just live there. And the easiest way to get them off the land without having to pay them off is to just kill them.
Right. Kill them and create terrorism. Basically, that's why Mama Masika was raped 22 times because they go into the villages, these mercenaries, these hired mercenaries from the bordering countries. They rape the women. They say, oh, you know, they're just Congolese in the Civil War. It's like, well, then why don't they speak Kiswahili? Why don't they speak Kikongo? Why don't they speak Lingala? They only speak Kinyarwanda, right? They only speak Luganda. They don't speak a Congolese language. So why is it that you're trying to say that it's a civil war? It's not a civil war. It's an international war. And actually, it's because the West has seen Africa for so long as a country and not a continent. When a rival country is invading another country, they don't see it as an international thing. They just see it as an African thing, right? Just a civil war, and these things happen in Africa. But they invaded Congo, and they continue to invade Congo, and these proxy wars or these unwinnable wars are funded directly by the West. And rather than deal with the reality that is the West needs to change the way that it deals with Africa, it's just the African leaders are corrupt. That's the story that's being sold.
That's the propaganda.
Right.
So they set this up. It's funded from both sides by corporations and governments, and they sit back and they watch, and then they sneak in and they steal the resources, and then what they put to the world is, oh, they're just fighting each other. This is a civil war. It's an internal thing. They can't act right. They just attack and kill each other, rape each other all the time. Meanwhile, they're the ones that are pulling all these strings to make this happen. They're the masters, and they, meaning the UK and America, are the masters of destabilizing regions. They mastered that technique of doing it and making it look like it's the people who live their fault.
Right.
So that's what they do.
It's the same thing that was going on in the 60s is going on today. And now what the US has done is they've exported their war on terrorism into Africa. There was no terrorists before in Africa doing suicide bombings. There was no jihadi terrorists. That thing didn't exist, right? When Obama came into power in North America, they exported what we now know as AFRICOM into Africa, and all of the places where AFRICOM has a US base. It's not a coincidence, right? And all of the places where these US bases are is full of minerals. So rather than come to Africa, as much as we want to say that China are the new colonizers of Africa, because we do in Africa, we do say that. China don't come into Africa and assassinate people. China don't force people to bend to the will of Chinese imperialism. China come in with a business deal or an agreement and say, hey, do you want to honor this? We got money for it. If you don't, fine, we'll go to a different country. The USA, rather than come in and say, hey, we've got a deal, let's do an agreement. They come in with their soldiers, they come in with their special operations, they come in with their money, they come in with their weapons, and most importantly, they come in with their US dollar. They destabilize the whole region, and then they take everything out, everything that they can take out, they take out. And now is ramping up because now, I don't know if you've just seen, but BYD, Build Your Dreams, is now taken over Tesla, right? This EV company is now overtaken Tesla, and China has 15 of the lithium, cobalt, and coltan mines
Yeah.
in the south of the country. There's 19 big ones, and China has 15 of them. Wow. So now the USA is just like, how do we fight
Yeah.
China, right? And they're basically exporting their world wars with China into Africa, just as they've done before in South Africa, just as they've done before in the Middle East, just as they've done before in Central and Latin America.
That's what they do. I remember when Obama and Hillary Clinton were in office, and they literally conspired together to take American tax dollars, go to Sudan, displace over 250,000 people off their land because they had resources. This never makes the American news.
Right.
And they had an illegal proxy war in Sudan, renamed it South Sudan. 250,000 people, men, women, and children, died in the desert and in the wilderness, while they put, American corporations right on top of that land, took the resources, and they took positions on the board of directors and everything else in these companies, and made millions of dollars off of a war that they didn't use any of their personal money to start. Used the taxpayers from America money,
Right.
and literally did it illegally. And they should be locked up for war crimes.
And all of it is just for oil.
Yeah.
That one there is just for oil. Like South Sudan keeps North Sudan rich because that's where all the oil comes from.
Yeah.
And goes up into Europe from there.
Yeah.
And is not a coincidence that Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, Congo, and basically anywhere that has massive instability also has US Army,
Always.
US Special Forces, US tax dollars, and US interests.
Yeah.
Like whenever I hear US interests, all I think is war, genocide, colonization. I don't think US interest means help or anything.
No. If the United States says we're going to help bring democracy to your country, escape as fast as you can, because it means you're going to be turned to dust.
Right.
And all the bodies will be turned to dust as well. You'll be pushing up daisies.
Right.
Here, we're bringing democracy. Run as fast as you can.
Right. And then the other thing that's crazy about Congo, if we just want to speak about some basic facts, 2.4 million kilometers squared. It is the second largest country in Africa. It is the size of Western Europe. If you stuck Congo in California, it would reach Texas.
Wow.
Right? It's huge. But there's only 100 million people that live there, right? It has 85% of Africa's fresh water in the country of Congo, but only 50% of the country have access to fresh water.
That's crazy.
70% of the population are under 30, 50% of the population are under 15. So imagine you've got 50 million people under the age of 15. What causes that? Massive wars, massive instability.
A lot of wars.
Massive wars. Like, I've never seen so many children in a country in my life. You go on the road and you'll just see children. It's children raising children. I'm seeing 5-year-olds carrying 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds on their back.
Wow.
1-year-olds on their back. And the reason being is because when you also create war, you also create in the human survival mechanism, genetic mechanism, you create a accelerated breeding opportunity, right? So we know that in different areas of the world, when there's war and lots of men are dying, humans will start having more boys, right? In Congo, there's lots of people dying, and there's been lots of people dying for a long time. So they have more and more kids, but at the same time, you have this country where it is estimated to have $24 trillion of minerals in the ground, right? At the same time, the country has a GDP of $550 annually per person. So imagine, every single day, you work every single day from sunrise till sunset. And in that whole 365-day year, you ain't going to make more than $600, right? So if you just think about that monthly, people are making about $40 a month, bro. $44 a month. This is what people are making each month. At the same time as the West are trying to say that this country is poor. Well, maybe if you allowed the people to even make a living wage, right? Exactly. Most people in the country are on less than $1.50 a day. Right? And at the same time, this country, and this is one thing I think that we should get into together over our friendship and over our knowledge-seeking journey. The only reason why Congo is not being studied the same way that Kemet, the same way that Egypt is not being studied, is because of racism.
Yeah.
Because if I was to tell you that the Ishango bone was found in Congo in an area called Ishango, not far from where I work, and I built this village.
Yeah.
The Ishango bone was found, and it is the world's oldest documented mathematical tool using radiocarbon dating.
Yeah.
It's said to be 20,000 years old.
Wow.
Right? And it's on the bone, I think we believe it's on the bone, the femur of a baboon. And it is seen as the oldest mathematical tool known to man. At the same time as we are in, I say we, scientists, archaeologists are in the jungles of Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, finding all of these temples. And we had kingdoms in Congo that go back 20,000 years, right? We also have in that same region, in mines in Eswatini, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. If anybody wants to read about this, you can read a book called A Star of Deep Beginnings by Charles Finch, MD. And in these areas, this was all part of one kingdom, right? In these areas, it is documented that between 50,000 to 90,000 years ago, they took out of these mines. There's one big one, I can't remember the name of it, but they took out of these mines between 3 to 30 million tons of iron ore.
Wow.
Right? And they don't know what it was being used for, but they have all of the tools there to show that this mining was going on. And we know that Columbus, when he got to the Caribbean, he was given a spear. He was given spears. The metallurgists say that the metals originate in East Africa. They were fashioned in West Africa, and then they got all the way to the Americas before Columbus got there. So this is a global economy that was going on with mining, and there's over 3 million tons of iron ore being taken out of this region. There's hundreds of thousands of artifacts. There's so much stuff that we don't know. There's the second largest jungle in the world that had temples and had castles and had all of these things in, and it's not being documented at all. At the same time as that area of the world has had a war going on for 25 years. It's just racism at this point, because me as a historian, as a scientist, archaeologists who are watching this, are you not interested in like the first documented mathematical tools, the first documented Iron Age? Because we're told the Iron Age was whatever period Europeans said it was, but the Iron Age was clearly a lot longer ago. And this is without going into, conspiracy theories saying, and speculation. This is just radiocarbon dating.
It's just hardcore facts.
Hardcore
evidence you can put your hands on.
Right, but nobody is studying this in any significant fashion. It's racism. That's all it is. That's all I can say that it is, because if Russians found this out where they live, or if French people found this out where they live, or if Indian people found this out where they live and found that they had the oldest mathematical tool, they invented the drum, they had these ancient kingdoms, civilizations that were doing all of this stuff that they don't know what they were doing with it. It would have been documented. There would have been teams of scientists in there by now. They would have been, oh my God, we've got to find out what this was and find out how it was done. And Congo is just like, 20,000 years ago they were doing something, but we don't know. And they just leave it like that.
Just leave it like that. And because of the fear and the propaganda from these wars, it's like, we better just stay clear of this area. Because if we go in there, we might get killed. We might get caught up in it.
Right. But at the same time, there is 150,000 tons of cobalt being taken out of Congo each year.
Single year, nonstop.
That's like $12 billion worth of cobalt, just cobalt being taken out. Then there's the coltan. The other thing for me, where I was, watching this whole kind of Wakandan narrative being created in 2018 when Black Panther came out, I was like, okay. So if you look at the Marvel comics, where they say that Wakanda was North Kivu, North and South Kivu. That's where the volcano is. If you actually look at the comics themselves, there's a picture of a cartoon, an illustration of the Nyiragongo volcano, which is the volcano you see behind the houses that are built there, right? So you have this whole Wakandan narrative come out, and you have all of these African Americans and all of these Afro-Brazilians and all of these Black British people and all these Caribbean people going, yes, I want to wear a dashiki and go to the movies and Wakanda, right? Yeah. Which is obviously a fictional place that doesn't exist in real life, right? But it's based on Congo. Even the second movie that now came out, Angela Bassett is saying that she is the daughter of Lumumba in this movie.
Yes.
Daughter of Patrice Lumumba, right? So you're using Patrice Lumumba's name. Yeah. You've got this whole narrative about this amazing Afro-futuristic, technologically advanced country, kingdom, nation in the middle of what is now Congo, and nobody thought to actually go and find out what's really going on. Yeah, everybody was like, no, it's Wakanda. And I'm there and I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, so all of these actors, all of these popular people, none of them looked at all of that and said, should I actually go to the real Congo? Even Winston C. Duke. And Winston, I sent you some messages about this. You didn't message me back. You didn't say shit about this. Winston C. Duke is now a citizen of Rwanda. Mbaku, the gorilla.
Yeah, the big guy.
He's Trinidadian, but he's now a citizen of Rwanda. Wow. Rwanda destabilizing Congo right now. And he's now a citizen of Rwanda. Kendrick Lamar just went to, last month, went to Rwanda and did the global citizen thing in Rwanda, right? But across the border in Congo, Kagame is getting a standing ovation. Across the border in Congo, right, there are millions of people there are 27 million people displaced in Congo right now. This is the biggest humanitarian crisis on earth. There are 27 million people starving. There are 7 million people displaced. Okay. 7 million people. Can anybody even fathom what that looks like? That's like
a lot of people.
The entire population of London displaced. Right. So you've got all of these people now displaced, and why is there so many people displaced? Because the West, China, India, and the whole rest of the world need more microphones, more iPhones, more cameras, more drones, more cars, all of this stuff that they need more of, let alone the I think it's 1.5 million tons of copper that's being taken out of Congo every single year. Man. So you've got $30 billion of copper being taken. You've got $10 billion of cobalt being taken out, or $12 billion of cobalt being taken out. You've got $2 billion of diamonds being taken out. Then there's the tantalum ore, what's it called? The coltan, the vibranium. Everybody's getting hype about vibranium, right? Right. If you look at what blackness is, it has the ability to send. It's a superconductor. It has the ability to send messages very fast, and very stably along what we now call or within what we now call motherboards. Right. So if we need all of these motherboards to be able to have a phone and run our systems, run the financial systems in the West, run the food systems now in the West, run the media, etc., and all of these minerals is coming from one place on Earth. I think that we as humans, forget we as Africans or we as Black people, but we as humans should be like, the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world. Do we want to solve it?
Right. Exactly.
Do we want to have some kind of positive impact in solving that, or do we want to just watch while millions of people are starving to death and millions of people are displaced, and then in 20 years time go, well,
that's what's happening now. I think the biggest part of the problem we have in society is the fact that our silence is collusion with the atrocity, and we don't make that connection that by being silent and by not getting involved, you're approving it. You're participating in it through silence, through non-action. And most people don't see that connection. When you have a situation where corporations are making trillions of dollars off the resources from one place where everybody's suffering, the world should come together. Like you say, all people should come together and say, enough is enough. I don't care if you have to charge us an extra 20 cents per phone, an extra $1 per device, an extra whatever.
Right.
That money must go to these people. We're going to stop buying your products.
Right.
But will everybody come on one accord? Have you ever thought of any possible solutions to a situation that's megalithic like this? What type of possible ideas can we come up with that can help begin to offset this kind of a problem?
There's many solutions, but the solutions require more suffering, unfortunately, because if I tell you that foreign multinational governments and every government in the world that is technologically advanced is basing its GDP now on the technology that's coming out of Congo, because now data has surpassed oil in actual value.
Yeah.
Then are these governments all going to say, okay, cool, we are going to just allow these people to have a normal life? If you look at what just happened in the Sahel region now, Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali are now forming a confederation. It kicked France out. They said, we're not doing this anymore. And Burkina Faso is now, no, sorry, not Burkina Faso, Niger, which France gets 25% of all of France's uranium, which powers France. It powers France's nuclear power stations.
Yeah.
25% of that comes from Niger, one African country alone.
Wow.
France was paying Nigerians, paying Nigerians 80 cents per kilo for that uranium.
Oh, man.
The market price per kilo is $300.
80 cents?
80 cents per kilo of the uranium, right? The market value of that uranium is $300 per kilo.
Yeah.
So it's now nearly 3,000% more than what it originally was, right? And that's one mineral from one African country. Now can you imagine Congo that produces 200 minerals for the rest of the world? The rest of the world, with its capitalism and it's trying to fight to enslave its own people. Seemingly every technologically advanced country in the world right now is enslaving its own people. At the same time as trying to exploit other people, right? And enslave other people. So, you know, one of the great solutions, there's a phone called Fairphone. Everybody can get a Fairphone. I don't know if the technology, they said that they're going to send me one. I don't know if the technology in Fairphone is as advanced as iPhone or as the new Samsung, but we remember what iPhone 1 was like. We remember what iPhone 4 was like.
Sure.
And iPhone 6.
Yeah.
It wasn't anywhere near where it is now.
Yeah.
So if you are willing to go on the journey of justice, freedom and equality, then you might have to take a hit in your technology, or you might have to make sure that you organize because now it's genocide season right now. Everybody in the world is looking at what's going on with Israel and Palestine. And now it's shining a light on the other genocides that are going on in the world, the other suffering that's going on in the world, whether it is in Sudan, whether it is in Yemen, whether it is in Somalia, whether it is in Congo. So everybody's looking at this and saying, well, what are the solutions? What are the collective solutions? I think one of the greatest solutions possible for Congo is that the rest of the world start making the rest of the world, the governments of the rest of the world, accountable for what they're paying for these resources. At the same time as blaming African leaders only goes so far when corruption doesn't happen on its own, right? So you can't call an African leader corrupt if he's working with the USA and if he's working with France. Everybody's corrupt then. I think what we're about to do is we're about to start a large campaign for justice, freedom, and equality of the Congolese people, because the fact of the matter is, people, take the minerals, pay a fair price, and stop the killing. Nobody said that you can't take the minerals.
It's still it seems so simple. Like, just pay a fair price so that the people don't suffer. There's so much margin there. The profit margins are ridiculous. Why do you think it is? Is it just pure greed? The fact that you would rather see people suffer so you can make 1,000% margin on a product?
Well, you look at the people at the top of the structures of these systems.
Yeah.
They're the same people that called us monkeys.
That's right.
They're the same people who practiced eugenics and said that Africans evolved from monkeys and white people evolved from Africans.
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at China and if you look at the racism in China, if you look at the USA and you look at the racism in the USA, if you look at Europe and you look at the racism in Europe, they're not looking at Africans as humans. They're looking at Africans as subhuman.
Yeah.
These are the same people that in 1957 in Belgium, in Brussels, had an African child, African children in zoos, in cages, that white children would come in, that white people were feeding stuff, and they were put next to chimpanzees that they also stole from Congo.
Yeah.
Right? AIDS, this whole idea that AIDS was just some, backwards Congolese that were just sleeping with monkeys.
Yeah.
When in the history of humans, right, you might get some weirdos that are into bestiality that might, fuck a sheep or a horse, right? But when have you ever heard of a human in the history of humanity ever just breaking it off with a chimpanzee? Have you ever heard about that? I've never heard about that personally, right? And I'm in Congo and I live there.
Yeah.
I'm there every single day. I've never heard of anybody saying, you know what? Today I feel horny. Let me go into the jungle, into a troop of 150 chimpanzees.
They will eat your face off.
Right, that will pull your legs off,
Yes.
right? And try and sleep with one.
Yeah, come
right?
on, man. Come on.
So at the same time, you have to look at these same people who have evil genius doctors like Dr. Hilary Kaprowski, who are trying to compete and come up with polio vaccines, but they're taking, in the center of the jungles of Congo, they're taking up to 400 chimpanzees. They're taking out their livers. They're taking out their kidneys to make solutions for these oral polio vaccines and these polio vaccines. And then all of a sudden, after the South African, the racist mercenaries in the South African apartheid government are now injecting everybody with this experimental polio vaccine. South Africa and Congo have the highest rate of AIDS in the world.
The highest.
The highest rate of AIDS in the world, where it never had AIDS before. Right? The same thing with Ebola. Right? The same thing with West Nile virus. The same thing with all of these things. It just so happens that the richest countries in the world have these infectious tropical diseases that just never existed in these regions until white people got there. Right? So it's very difficult for me to go to a uneducated population and say, hey guys, you know what? I'm going to tell you about this, and now we need to find a solution. I think the first thing is everybody needs to know what's going on. I have been in school in the UK. I was taught about Hitler. I was taught about the Jews. I was taught about the Holocaust. Why in school today are we not being taught about the African Holocaust?
We're not.
It's not being taught about. It's not being spoken about. It never makes the media. So how is it that we are humans and we say that we're interested in humanity? And this is the thing, whether it's I'm speaking to Arabs, whether it's I'm speaking to Chinese, whether it's I'm speaking to Europeans or even other Africans.
Forbidden Knowledge Television.
This is logged in on November 25th, 2023, Eastern Standard Time. Sensitive material has been breached and it is now in front of the public. This is very sensitive documentation and the world will be in total chaos if leaked, and it is now leaked. All of it. Not one document, all of it. Place of exploitation, Forbidden Knowledge Television. This must be stopped.
At the same time as we're sitting there and we're talking about we are all one human race, at the same time as we are being told that we have to support and protect the rainbow community, at the same time as we are being taught and professed to that, all lives matter. How is it that 7 million people died in Central Africa and you don't know about it? Or if you do know about it, you're not speaking about it every day. Because every single other film that is coming out of Hollywood is about the Holocaust, right? whether it's Tarantino making a revenge film about what was going on, the Inglourious Basterds movie, or whether it's Schindler's List, right? There is a movie that always pays dividends to
Always.
the Holocaust and never again.
Yeah.
But yet, millions, why am I seeing in Nigeria and in South Africa, who are obviously the last country to be under an apartheid rule apart from occupied Palestine, and in Niger and in Ghana, I am seeing protests against the occupation of Palestine by Israelis.
Yeah.
But none of them are talking about Congo.
None.
Not any of them are talking about Congo. And it's like, well, at the same time, if we are all one and we are for humanity, then we need to speak up for all humanity.
Exactly.
Right? Because as long as there is an injustice anywhere, there is an injustice everywhere.
Everywhere.
Right? And I think I will probably ask, my question to you would be, as a member of the conscious community, and in fact, I just want to give you your flowers because you are probably the father of the conscious community on the internet, right? So you actually you reached this status of being the guy, right? And that's taken a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication and a lot of alternativism, if it's even a word, right? It's taken, this is the path, I'm going to go this way, right? So I've seen you do that over the years. That's why I even reached out in the first place. And so as the father of consciousness on the internet, how do we get the conscious community to use their voice, to use their devices, which are mined from the same minerals in the same place that we're talking about? How do we get those people? Because you see me, I'm always doing the work, right? I'm trying my best. I'm doing collaborator posts now. I'm in Congo. I'm documenting stuff. I'm doing lots of stuff. But how do you think that we get the conscious community to not just be conscious in what they put into their body, and not just be conscious in what they put into their mind, but how do we get them collectively to consciously raise the vibration of humanity in regards to what is going on in Congo? How do you think we get people to wake up?
That's a great question. And what I really feel, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to get you on this podcast, is because I think the education process needs to start within the conscious community so they can begin to understand. I mean, a lot of people don't know a lot of the details that you just dropped. I was well aware of quite a few of them, and I was like, this guy's on point. Like, he really knows the story to the T. I learned a few things from you today as well. I think the education process needs to begin now. Once we get the education out there, people are well versed in exactly specifically what's going on, then we can begin to use our social media platforms that is made from these screens that are mined from forced child labor, and we can begin to show the world, because the mainstream news is not the news anymore. The mainstream news is now the feeds on social media. How can we turn those feeds into an educational system where we're now talking about and showing and exposing what's going on, so we can begin to educate the rest of the world on what's really happening? Now, when we got the world educated, the next thing is making actionable steps to begin to take action, whether it's some type of a collective thing. I don't believe in protesting too much, because I don't think protesting really has a big effect. I think it's just a bunch of people crying on screen and nobody cares. But when we begin to say no, so collectively, if we can get 15, 20 million people, no, it sounds like a big number, but it's not a big number really, to say, no, we're not going to participate. We're not going to get the upgrade. We're not going to buy this oil. We're not going to pay the interest on this loan this month. We're not, and we begin to stop participating in their systems, and we pull back to the point where they feel it, and they say, okay, now we say, well, we got to negotiate now. And then we say, okay, these are the things, these are our demands, and our demands are this. These people that are responsible for the technology of the world, they need to be compensated properly, or we're not going to participate in this any longer. I think it's a process, but the beginning stage, that's a rough idea, but the beginning stage is start with education, because the world needs to know what's in your head and in my head about the Congo, to the level that we can actually speak on it very energetically and very profoundly, because the majority of the people have no clue.
Do you think that do you think people care?
I really do think people care. At the base core root, there's always going to be trolls and haters and people that are going to take the mainstream side. But at the core of most of the people in the world, at their heart of hearts, I think that most people do truly want to see a peaceful world and see people happy and safe. I think that the only thing that divides us are divide and conquer tactics, which manipulate us and peel us away from each other. But I really believe at the core of most people, not all people, but most people, there is something at the core of people that's centered on humanity and love, but they need somebody to drive them into taking action.
And do you think that, so 150,000 tons right now each year of cobalt are being taken out of Congo.
Yeah.
That is set to increase to 250,000 tons by 2025. What is going on now in Congo with all these displaced people is going to get worse by 50% in the next 6 years, right? Because of the demand for all of this stuff. Do you think that educating people that their green tech revolution has a human cost, has a black human cost, their green tech revolution has a black, Congolese, African human cost, do you think that that's going to spurn people to find alternate solutions? Or do you think that it's what now is best is just to try and figure out a way for best practice in these places? Because as I told you before, people are being forced, exploited. There's around 50,000 child slaves in these mines in Congo now, right? Do you think that people are going to hear this stuff and be like, hey, how do we get the kids out of the mine? Or do you think they're going to hear this stuff and think, how do we boycott the product? What do you think is best? Do you think it's finding a best practice way of doing it? Because as I said to you before, these people are mining this stuff with no protective equipment. They're getting cancer. They're dying.
There's no oversight at all.
There's no oversight. There's no protective equipment.
Nothing.
There's no regulation. There's nothing.
I did a huge YouTube video on this about a year ago that went viral, and I showed video of these kids going down into these mines, and what would happen if they, some of these mines collapse, and also what happens if they don't work hard or they perceive not to be working hard. They would get beat by these men. But the thing is, I think the education process, a person's mind won't initially go to how do we get, it goes to how do we get the kids out, but then it goes to how do we fight against governments and all the chain in between those kids to us. The first part begins to be, well, how can we begin to hold them accountable through not participating and also through the stock market. The stock market runs off of emotion. A lot of people don't understand that. It really runs off of emotion. I learned this because
economics is not a science. It's just what humans decide.
It's attributed value. It's only attributed conscious value is what makes something rise or sink in the economic market. And I learned this through, I became an expert in playing stock options. That's primarily where I get most of my money from the stock market. I know how to do the options calls and puts. But when you begin to expose something like this on a level that we can take it to with full global exposure over time through education and then having activities, collectively putting information out in an organized fashion, I think that will begin to affect stock prices. Tesla is trying to now get away from the EV. They're going to start going to hydrogen because he's realizing I'm about to get in big trouble. I don't know how far or when it's going to begin, but I know they have the H model coming out. A lot of car dealers, car makers in America are going to begin to go towards hydrogen because of the same problem. What happens when one of these rebels or one of these areas get completely taken over, these mines get completely taken over? Now the price of the raw ore is going to shoot up through the sky, and they won't be able to produce cars at the rate. But still, the screens and everything else is still going to keep coming. So, but we have to be in a position to where we can, again, educate and then begin to influence or, I guess, direct the market up or down based on our own actions. That will get the attention of corporations. You can't get anything done until the corporations take notice to something, and they're forced to then take a different route or make changes in their policies or how they're operating. A lot of those mines over there are like we say, no oversight. They may have one or two or whatever, but then they claim that they're getting everything from that mine. It's impossible.
Right.
It's being used and spread out across multiple mines,
Right.
and people are suffering. It's going to take us really, the voice of masses of people, to stand up, make it public to the point where even the mainstream media takes notice, and the stocks begin to drop, the share prices begin to drop, and then all of a sudden, things begin to change slightly. That's just a beginning and a rough idea off the dome, but we have to do something.
I mean, since I've started this work, I know lots of people. On my Instagram and across my collective platforms, I have about 2 million followers, right?
Yeah.
The reality is, we know it's probably around 20 million. If there was no censorship, there was none of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I have just been in Congo, Ghana, even Thailand, and the UK. I'm here right now in Florida. Bro, I cannot walk anywhere where black people are and they don't say, hey, hey, it's you. Oh, okay.
It's me. They know.
Right, exactly.
They see us, they know right away. Hey.
Right, yeah, you're the guy. Yeah, you're that guy.
Yeah.
And yet, most of the celebrities know me. Most of the popular African-American, Afro-Brazilian, Afro-Caribbean people know me. I have not yet had one person say, hey, you see that Congo thing? I've got you. What do you need?
Yeah.
I'm there now fundraising for 10 years. I'm there fundraising, little small 5K here, little small 10K here, a little small. There's been no, hey, nobody's come to me and said, hey, how do we own a mine in Congo? How can we do this ourselves?
Yeah.
How can we, the people who care, the conscious community, how can we have our own cobalt mine? We pay people fair wages. There's protective equipment. There's proper structures put in place so the mines can't collapse. There are pensions. There is healthcare. There is schooling. There is, meal pro. How do we make this Wakanda? How do we build this tech city? How do we build a city that is based on an infinite abundance of wealth? Because if the internet and hyperreality is an infinite space, how are we using that space to not just do TikTok videos and make people laugh, not just share memes and try to, sell products to make our own lives rich, but how do we actually create this Wakanda? Yeah. What does the Wakanda look like? If this is where humans are going, what does the future of humans look like? Yeah. If there's one country in the world, which is Congo, which has all the minerals to be able to build technologies to move humans forward, why are we not moving there and making it stable? Right. Why are we not building Wakanda? Why are we not beating T'Challa and Shaka and doing all of these things? Why are we not saying, hey, the bar is here, how do we move it here? Because right now what we're seeing is we're just being like, what are the Chinese doing? What are the Europeans doing? What is the latest technology coming from these places? But if a bunch of African Americans turned up in Congo tomorrow with money and said, hey, we know that you don't want this war here anymore. We know that you want your people to have food. And at the same time as you can get rich, we can get rich, and the people can be rich. Then the Congolese government and anybody who has any sense about them would be like, fine. Because there's a dam right now. This is something that a lot of your followers might not know. There's a dam right now in Congo that is based on the Congo River. And this dam is called the Inga Dam. It has one turbine running right now. This one turbine is able to not only power Kinshasa, but it also does load sharing and actually powers other African hydroelectricity. One turbine's working. It's $1 billion project to get all 4 turbines up and running. If all 4 turbines are up and running, just Google the Inga Dam. If all 4 turbines are up and running in the Inga Dam, it will power the entire continent of Africa. The entire continent of Africa can be powered from one river in Congo. Right? Because Congo River is at its widest point, it's around 14 kilometers wide. It's 200 and I think it's around 600 feet deep at its deepest point. It's the deepest river on earth. Right? It's one of the most powerful rivers on earth, right? And all you need to do It sticks some turbines on it, and you've got electricity for the whole of Africa.
Yeah.
That's 1.3 billion people. Why are we not looking into that? Why are we trying to fight over very small pieces of hyper-developed, overdeveloped capitalist systems that are ruining the world and trying to figure out how we can make very small amounts of money relative? I'm not saying that, $1 million is a small amount of money, right?
Yeah.
But why are we trying to fight over very small amounts of real estate, very small amounts of money, very small amounts of capital and companies that are not doing the world any good, when we actually go into the center of Africa and be like, well, we can power the whole continent of Africa. We can power not just the continent of Africa, it could power other countries around the world as well, right? These are things that can be done if you start looking at it. Why is it that the second largest rainforest in the world that produces 95% of its own weather, that has nearly the most species of any rainforest, any dense population of bioecology, and anywhere in the world has some of the most species, the most rare earth minerals, the most of everything, the most abundance of everything. Why are we not in there studying that and trying to sort that out? Because yes, there might be war in the east of Congo. It's 2.4 million kilometers square. If there was war today in where are we now? Florida. There was war today in Texas. Is Florida that bothered? Maybe. If there was war if you're in Texas and there's war in California, you're not going to be like, well, I can't go outside, right?
But they see that's a perception, because what you're saying right now, you just educated me on something else. The perception of the locality of this war that's consistently going on for so long, when you put it in that perspective, all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense. Because from the perception probably of the majority of the people, it's everywhere. So as soon as you land there, you're gonna
get shot.
You're gonna see people shooting and getting shot and dying in the street. That's my perception. That was my perception of this exact moment.
Right.
This is why I say the education process is so important, because if we can begin to educate people on this, then we can begin to unite entrepreneurs.
Right.
And then we can go over there and do something like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
we should.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it, man. Come on. We're gonna do it.
We should.
The education process is with the beginning, though, because I just learned something. I had no idea. In my brain, I go there and land, I get shot. That's it. I'm pushing the daisies.
Right. And the thing is like, I've been working there for 8 years and I don't have any bullet holes on me.
Right? It looks like you out in the middle of the jungle.
No,
elephants.
I actually do be in the war zone area, but and I actually, over the last 2 years, I raised about $1 million.
Yeah.
And I built a Pan-African village.
Okay.
Essentially, it is a village for displaced people. We take care now of around, there's about 80 people in the village right now. We take care of around 25 orphan children.
Nice.
We take care of around 50 children in total.
Yeah.
And rather than build an orphanage, what we did was we said, hey, let us build a village, because it takes a village to raise a child.
Yep.
And humans come from villages, right? We said, why do we build a village so that these children's extended families can live with them, rather than we build a building and only the kids can live in there and then only our staff can live? It doesn't even make sense, right? Culturally, it doesn't make sense. So we're like, why don't we build a village, which we did. We acquired around 5 acres of land. We built this village. We built a football pitch for the kids.
Nice.
We have now started a soap making business. I will be getting some soap to you. It's medicinal soap.
Okay.
It's made from around 60 to 120 plants that grow on the side of the volcano. So it's actually therapeutic medicinal soap.
Yeah.
Completely natural soap. So we have a soap making business that we just started for the people in the village. The people in the village are now starting to farm 3 acres of land, which will make them completely self-sustainable.
Nice.
We just bought a wood machine. The wood machine is, if you want to make this chair and you chop down a tree, you've got to treat it so that you can be able to make it so that you can sit on it, right?
Yeah.
So we just bought a wood treatment, the wood dryer machine, which is the only one, as far as I'm aware, in Congo.
Wow.
They were having to go across the border to Rwanda to treat their wood and paying per piece of wood to treat their wood for the furniture companies there.
Yeah.
So we just spent $60,000 of the public's money that they were giving to us to buy this wood dryer machine. this wood drying machine now will be able to make money so that it can support the kids there in the village. Because every month, I remember like 6 months ago, you gave me $5,000.
Yeah.
Which is much appreciated. That $5,000 is around about our outgoings to take care of all of the kids in the village per month.
Per month.
Wow. So we used that to take care of all of the kids in the village for a month, right? So they ate, they were chilling, they were cool because of you giving that money, and then obviously because of all of the people that subscribe to Billy and support Billy's businesses. He gave money to me, we supported the kids. So that is a way that we have actually used these devices to pay it back, right?
Yeah.
But we also now have put 20 people on a carpentry course who live in the village so they can also make furniture.
Yeah.
Because, teach a man to fish and all of that.
Exactly.
And so we're getting to the point where this village is going to be completely self-sustaining. Nice. So they're not going to need any more charity from us. All I will need people to do is buy some soap now, right? And just watch the kids from afar. But where there's 7 million people displaced, there's basically I see it as there's a workforce of 7 million. Let's say half of them are kids. Yeah. There's a workforce of 3.5 million people.
That's
right. That's an army.
Man,
there's a workforce of all of these people who don't have jobs right now, who are all displaced, who could actually build the next Wakanda. They could actually build the next mines that are going to be able to build the next technologies. Because imagine this. Imagine if you look at, like, for instance, this lembo bone, the mathematical tool.
Yeah.
If you look at the Ishango bone, the lembo bone was found in Zambia, I do believe. The lembo bone, the Ishango bone was found in Congo. The Ishango bone, they say, was documenting the women's menstrual cycle. That's what I think it was for.
Yeah.
Or possibly, but it was an astronomical tool, because they were having to map what the stars were doing and the moon was doing to be able to document the woman's cycle when she was fertile. Right.
Really cool.
So that was in human history.
Yeah.
That is the first astronomical tool. It wasn't Naptaplaya in Kemet. It wasn't, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't Mu or Lemuria. It was there because we have it. Right. It's there. Hard evidence that we have it. What do I think that, asking myself a question now, what do I think that, or where do I think technology would be if these people who are clearly mapping the stars, 20,000 years ago, were able to take the minerals that are in the ground where they live and then do something with it? Because also this whole binary coding came from that. This all ones and zeros came from that in human civilization, in human thought and human consciousness. The whole binary code came from Congo, came from West Central Africa, came from Nigeria. That's where it first came from.
Wow.
What do we think that where do we think those people would be if there was no colonization, no invasion? So we know that the colonization and invasion exists. We know that the people have gone through that, are going through that currently. But if we were to just say, all right, no more war, and we're going to come and help you guys to industrialize, we're going to come and help you guys to technologize your minerals that live right there. You don't have to take 150 tons of it every year on trucks all the way down to Durban and then, ship it all the way to China. But we're building the gigafactories in Congo. We're building the manufacturing for this tech in Congo. What would it look like? I think it would be the most technologically advanced civilization on Earth. And we could actually get to where the future of humans is, because if African people, it's been documented that African indigenous people were the first humans on Earth to do most things, right? You've been to Dendera.
Oh yeah.
Right? They were there doing these things before we even knew Europeans existed.
True.
Right?
Very true.
What would these people be able to do now if they were given back their minerals and given back their land and given back they were able to be the authors of their own destiny? And that's what I want to see. Like, in my lifetime, I want to see what the Congolese, what the East Central and Central African people can do with their own stuff, because they're really a magic people, and I don't think we give them enough credit.
Listen, that's powerful. And man, I wish we had so much more time because we got to do a part 2, because we really need to go deeper into this and we're getting now to the point of developing a complete new ideology about this region of the world and how we can begin to redevelop that area. These people are, like you said, some of the most intelligent people on the planet. And as most indigenous people, you know, they get labeled as uncivilized, dumb, and everything else. But you take away the influence that came in to put them in that situation, you find out they're all geniuses.
Right.
Because when you look at all these ancient sites that I've been to, you know, I travel the world nonstop. Right. They have technology, evidence of ancient technology in these locations based on structures and things left behind, like the bone you found and everything else, that let us know these people were geniuses. Mm-hmm. And that the only thing that's holding them back now has been the fact that they were invaded. Mm-hmm. And through that invasion, they were oppressed and had everything stolen and ripped away from them. Mm-hmm. And now you're looking at generations later, the effect of that. Mm-hmm. They need to be re-educated. But the genius gene is still inside the DNA. You can't remove that. Mm-hmm. All you can do is hide it for a time. Mm-hmm. We need to begin to be able to give them back their knowledge of self, mm-hmm. their self-worth, their self-purpose, and give them a project and a plan so they could begin to reclaim who they truly are.
Listen, if anybody out there is watching this and you're a multimillionaire, a multi-billionaire, or you can mobilize the wealth of hundreds of thousands of millions of people, I can get you access. Yeah. I can get you access. I can show you land that has infinite amounts of minerals in it. I know areas of land, I know areas of land that are 100,000 square acres of land, 100,000 hectares of land. Ooh. That I can take you to, and you can go and explore, and the chief will let you do whatever you want with that land as long as it benefits the people. So wow. It's not like in Africa. This is the other thing, as crazy as it is that it's been made this wild west. At the same time, in the wild west, there's no traffic lights. Yeah. So you can do whatever you want to do. There's no glass ceilings. You can actually go in there and say, hey, I want to build some more pyramids. Yeah. I want to build the future of humans. I want to do all of this stuff, and I want to do it with the local indigenous population. These are the most hardworking people I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. They have been working for over 150 years under this horrific colonial rule. Yeah. They are some of the most beautiful, intelligent, smart, and people with the greatest integrity I've ever seen in my life. And all they need is a break. Yeah. And I think that we, the diaspora, and also we, the global conscious community and global conscious population, can give them that, because the things that I see people and the incentives that I see people have in the West is basically fighting against Western imperialism, Western capitalism, and trying to create alternative systems within what we call in Rastafari, I was raised Rasta, is what we call in Rastafari as Babylon. We're trying to create different systems within Babylon, and we can just move to places that are Zion. We can just move to places that are better. So
create heaven on earth.
Right. So
that's what it's all about.
So thank you for having me. Thank you for bringing me here, and we will continue to build. And the research it begins with searching, then research, and the evidence is out there, and it is for you as somebody who have a obligation, now that you've watched this and you've made an observation, to be able to be part of building a better conscious nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey man, thank you.
Bless.
Chakabars, listen, make sure you follow him at Chakabars on Instagram and any other social. What are your other social media platforms?
Follow iHeart Africa. Right now, what we're doing is we're connecting the donor to the donee. And if anybody wants to individually, personally support a family, we have on a Ko-fi website, and through a Discord, we have ways that you can actually support an entire family in one of the houses that we built. We built 24 houses. We've put families who are displaced in all of those houses. There's nice furniture, it's solar power, it's everything that you could ever want in a house. So we need some support for you, for the people, just until we get them completely self-sustaining. So we're setting up all these businesses and we're doing all this stuff for them. So follow iHeart Africa, IHEART Africa.dot.org on IG, and support our children. But hopefully, one day we're going to see some of you guys out in the Congo with us.
That would be amazing. And I had invented an AGM battery that can power a small house for about a week.
Oh, wow.
It could take a trickle charge from a solar panel.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to make sure that this is my tech company, First Class Space, that when we get back into redevelopment, we got slowed down when the whole pandemic, came. But we're getting ready to open the lab back up again, open production manufacturing again. I'm going to make sure we get some of those over there.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Okay, everyone, this is Billy Carson. That's another episode of the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast. We'll see you again soon.
Peace.
We love what we do. It's not only a way for living, okay, but truly we love showing people Egypt, the authenticity of Egypt, the Egyptian food, and the high quality of the Egyptian food.
So, Muhammad, you took us on an amazing tour. It was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. How about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially just compared to both times that we've come to Egypt. It's not my third time. This time with you both, it was spectacular. We got to see way more stuff, and it was very exclusive, and you guys are so hands-on with everything.
And we are looking forward to sharing this with all of our Forbidden family and to bringing as many people as we possibly can every year to come back with Saboteurs.